Salah Abdeslam, the prime surviving suspect for November's Paris attacks, will no longer fight extradition to France. His lawyer says that Abdeslam wants to return to his home country to explain himself as soon as possible. Abdeslam was arrested last weekend in a dramatic raid in Brussels. Paris prosecutor Francois Mollins said last week that at worst it could take 3 months for Abdeslam to be handed over to France after he said he would oppose extradition to his homeland. Abdeslam is due in court in Brussels on the 31st of March for the execution of a European arrest warrant issued by France. Well, European Union Interior and Justice ministers are due to hold a crisis meeting in the Belgian capital, Brussels, in order to discuss the terrorist attacks in the region. Now, this comes as Brussels is struggling to get back to normal after the Tuesday attacks that left more than 30 people dead. And to discuss the latest attacks in Europe, I'm joined in studio by Dr. Malte Brosig, who is a senior lecturer in the Department of International Relations at WITS. Doctor, thank you so much for joining us. Welcome.
Thank you very much.
Now, Doctor, look, everybody's asking, Tuesday's attack caught Belgium and Europe by surprise, just like the November attacks. But is it ever going to be ready for these attacks?
I think no one really can be ready for a terror attack. I mean, there's always this element of surprise in it. But I would say it was not completely surprising after all. I mean, there have been lots of warnings before. Brussels has been shut down before. Last year, for example, for an extended period of time. So there was this fear that there will be another attack.
Look, Doctor, while we're on the surprise issue, I mean, it's reported that intelligence indicated that activities and connections of the two brothers to ISIS were actually reported upon. Or maybe these intelligence reports were not taken seriously. What do you think is the issue there?
I mean, what we can see in the Paris and in Brussels attacks, they first of all seem to be connected, right? And the fact that one of the key terror suspects from the Paris attacks could hide in Brussels for 4 months clearly indicate that there was insufficient intelligence, and that intelligence is still, trying to keep up with the events. Doctor,
look, a lot of questions have been raised over the so-called third suspect that you've just mentioned, and with international media yesterday refuting the fact that somebody else was arrested. So, I mean, what's really going on here? Is Lachroy part of the suspects? Is he linked to these attacks? What's going on?
I'm not going to speculate here. So after each terror attack, we have to wait a little bit until the dust is actually setting and we have better information here. But I mean, what's really clear is that there's a network of terrorists and that they could hide pretty well. And it's pretty scary to see that the two terror attacks in Paris and Brussels seem to be connected in one way or another. In previous cases, actually, security forces like police were actually able to catch suspects and prevent further attacks. I mean, this time we can see a kind of connection here.
Doctor, look, why do you think that Belgium is an easy target, if we can call it that, for these attacks?
Yeah, there might be several reasons. First of all, Belgium is a fairly smaller country, so in terms of the costs of keeping up with security, for example, I think Belgian security forces are also stretched to the limits. That's one reason. And then, of course, the link to Syria. Belgium is the country that is almost exporting terrorists. There are 500 to 600 Belgian extremists fighting in Syria, and at one point they might also come back. And there's insufficient information actually about where these people are and where they are traveling.
But Doctor, I mean, to institute such measures now that everybody must now go through the security gate now after the terror attacks, I mean, shouldn't they have done that beforehand?
I mean, absolutely, man. It's a very justified questions, and I mean, we've been talking about better connecting police forces in Europe and exchanging information.
Absolutely,
I mean, we still see quite a lack here of gathering information, sharing information, and of course, drawing the right conclusions from it.
Doctor, that is very worrying indeed. And now, after the November carnage, which we know left about 130 people dead, the whole of Europe, if you remember, actually went into an overdrive regarding anti-terror preparedness. And now, hardly 4 months later, after we have the Brussels one, what does this really tell us about the situation in Europe in particular?
I mean, it will almost certainly be used for political reasons. You can think about the Brexit discussion in the UK. You can think about right-wing populist parties in Europe in the coming elections. So you can think about the immigration issue that's pretty high on the agenda.
Yes.
I'm afraid it will have some consequences.
Doctor, look, before I let you go, do you think they're going to win this war against ISIS, and how? What's it going to take? Better
obviously,
intelligence?
there's no short-term solution to
Absolutely
it, right?
not,
But
yeah.
we can see that in Iraq and in Syria, IS is actually, the so-called Islamic State, is actually losing ground. And at the moment, it tries to spread and get on the ground in other countries like Libya. And maybe we also are seeing more and more terrorists actually coming back to Europe. And that's a challenge to face.